How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It is time for Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. And oh my gosh, we got a ton of books to go through, so let's not waste any more time. Stick around. All right, so welcome back. So let's go ahead and get started in these books because we have a ton of them to get through. We're going to start in the big two as we always do. Starting over in Marvel, we have Carnage. This is issue number 4, and this is from romv. Now, I know he's also co-writing the Venom book as well. Not as strong as Carnage, and obviously, actually not as strong as Venom Lethal Protector. So if you're looking for some symbiote books, I would probably pick up Carnage and Lethal Protector. Because those are the two strongest ones in my opinion. The other Venom book is not that great right now. We'll see how it plays out and what happens after the end of this initial story arc. So what's going on here in the Carnage issue? So basically, a lot of the symbiote books right now are dealing with the evolution of the symbiotes. And so we have Carnage trying to go out there. He's actually absorbing powers from other like low-level villains, but he's very methodical. He's thought this through. He knows his targets very well. He's piecing together like this ultimate version of himself by absorbing very particular villains out there. He's already taken out a few, and now he's adding this like secret ingredient right now, one that I did not see coming personally. And so he's kind of dragging us and his potential new host along for this journey. We're trying to piece together what he's kind of putting together right now. And then on the other side of this, we have this detective who has like a little piece of Carnage that fell off. It's actually like the Cletus Cassidy version of the symbiote. He's kind of embedded into this other detective host as well, and he's kind of on his own journey as well. So it's a pretty interesting book. Again, it's about the evolution of the symbiote. The art style is pretty cool. I do like that. This issue here was a little bit more confusing than the other issues. We're kind of like traveling, I don't know, it's like another dimension or something like that. So we're getting introduced to some interesting characters. And so that kind of threw me out because the other couple issues were really grounded. And the ending was just a little bit confusing. This is still a good run overall. I would pick it up. Like I said, I would get this book, and then I would get Venom Lethal Protector. This particular issue is not as strong as 1, 2, and 3, but it's still worth a check out. All right, the next Marvel book we have is Captain America: Sentinel of Liberty. This is issue number 2, and I got the Peach Momoko cover because I really like it when she does full covers, not just a character in the middle surrounded by white. So I appreciate when she actually fills the page. So this is actually turning into a pretty interesting book, I think. In the previous issue, we had a national holiday in the US that was kind of interrupted, or was about to be interrupted by this like really secret villain that Captain America and like Bucky Barnes and some older folks of that Captain hangs around with. They had to like decode a message. They stopped the bad guy. The bad guy gave him some hints of what's to come in his future, and then of course good old cyanide capsule trick took care of that. So Captain's just trying to figure out what he means by when he told him the symbol is not yours or something like that. And so basically we are starting to understand right now that there's these secret organizations. There's like these 5 secret organizations, if I remember correctly, and they're basically pulling the strings everywhere. And so Captain's trying to go out there and figure out what all that means. There's an army that he fights where it's like Hydra agents, it's the Hand, they have AIM technology, so like everyone's kind of like combined and ganged up in a way and like created this massive army, and it's like a secret society. And so Cap's trying to figure out what all that means, and we get some pretty cool characters that are introduced in this book, some potential new supervillains as well, and some old fan favorites that I haven't seen in a Cap book in quite some time. So this book is actually turning into something pretty interesting, and so I would keep an eye out on this. If you weren't sure about jumping in on a Captain America book, give this one a chance because it's pretty cool, and there's an interesting mystery that they're weaving into the story right now. Our next Marvel book is ASM number 5, and I got that variant cover because I like it when he's just going nuts, man. That's just a cool cover. I do like that one a lot. It's got like this glowing effect, which I think is cool. This is issue number 5, and this is a pretty cool story as well. This is our Peter Parker Spider-Man. He's basically a little bit of ashamed. He kind of got baited by Tombstone, and he ended up taking out one of Tombstone's rival gangs in the area, so it kind of gives him a little bit more breathing room to expand and everything, and it takes out like the competition in a way. So Spider-Man is trying to figure out what he's going to do to retaliate against that little trick that Tombstone pulled on him. And so he kind of finds an interesting way of doing that, kind of like a can't beat him, join him kind of a situation. So there's a lot of cool Peter Parker Spider-Man humor and dialogue in this book. He's just kind of like chilling in Tombstone's penthouse and things like that, feet kicked up and everything. We do get a Black Cat appearance in here. We get a little bit of Aunt May action in here too. And so it's kind of nice to see Peter and Aunt May kind of getting back together a little bit. Like the last time we saw her, she was ashamed of Peter and he kind of went on his own way. And so it's nice to see them at least talking again. So that's actually pretty fun. I got to say, I'm actually enjoying the story overall, but the artwork is just kind of, man, there's just certain panels where it just does not work for me at all. I'm just not really used to that JRJR style just quite yet. The faces, the thick cross-hatching, the anatomy that he uses, the poses and stuff like that. Sometimes it feels like it's impossible. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about like Todd McFarlane poses, but I'm just talking about anatomy in general. Sometimes it just feels off. And so that kind of takes me back a little bit. I've almost made a game out of it at this point where I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, yep, there's another one. Oh, there's another problem. Oh, there's another problem, But it's all in good fun. Overall, I do like the art style. It's just kind of interesting to see some of the directions that he takes. So, if you were kind of shying away from ASM because maybe you heard some bad things about the previous runs, I would start picking these ones up because the story's not bad at all. And I think they're getting to a place where you actually like Peter Parker again, because in the beginning he was portrayed as just like a jerk and everybody hated him. I think it's doing a good job. I like his interactions with the villains and stuff like that, and so it's been a pretty fun run, especially if you like JRJR art. And I would check it out for sure. So that's actually it for Marvel. We're going to hop over into DC, and I got to tell you, I got a ton of DC books this week, and they are killing it on the art teams at least, and some of the writings are really, really good as well. So let's get into it now. We have G. Willow Wilson on Poison Ivy #2, and I got that Jenny Frison cover because that's what you do. And this is actually drawn by somebody who I'm not too familiar with, but it's Takara. And so what I really love about Takara's art style in here is it's real gritty and dark. It's got some interesting, like, soft elements to it, and then all of a sudden it's, like, extremely gory in the next instance. I'm talking, like, really bad stuff. But she's got, like, this really cool way of drawing, like, facial expressions and, like, eyes and figures and things like that. So I really appreciate that. It's really a beautiful book to look at. And there's some scenes in here where there's just a lot of stuff going on because it's Poison Ivy. And she has, like, these abilities to control spores and, obviously vines and all those other elements that Poison Ivy brings to the picture. So I do love the art style in this book. It is really cool. And the story itself, it is pretty interesting. She's basically on this one-way mission to take everything out. She had a taste of what a god would feel like back in like the Fear State run, where she was kind of, her personality was kind of split in half. And I think the last Catwoman run by romv covered elements of that as well. And so she had a kind of a taste of that. And so she's on this like one-way mission almost to kind of end it all, let the green take back over and eliminate the threat of like humanity destroying the world. So it's a pretty interesting story. I do like it a lot. There's some weird elements that they introduced into this one. There's like this symbolism that is found in here, and she has flashbacks of where she saw that before. So I'm sure there's going to be some other like supernatural elements introduced into here as we go. This is actually a pretty cool book. I really like it a lot. It's something that I was a little bit worried about, but Wilson's doing a great job, and Takara on the art. I actually think it's a great team, so I would recommend this one as well. All right, the next DC book we have is The Joker issue number 15. Got like that Killing Joke-esque thing right here. He's got like a Apple phone instead of his little his other camera that he had in the Killing Joke. So it is interesting. So number 15. Now I remember when I think this run started, I think we were only going to get 14 issues, and then a 15th issue was announced. I don't know, somewhere like in the early teens, maybe like issue 11, something like that. And I was kind of bummed out because I loved the beginning of this. I liked the idea that Gordon was given the opportunity to kill the Joker and be paid like handsomely for it by this mysterious woman, right? You thought it was going to be something crazy. And then it kind of morphed into like this insane story about like human trafficking, taking samples of supervillains and like creating mind-controlled supervillains like Vengeance that was introduced. Then there was a whole Samson farm or Samson family, and they went over their history and how crazy they were. And then there was this gigantic plot of destroying Arkham and blaming it on the Joker and having everybody kill the Joker. It was nuts, man. It was nuts. I will say, it got very confusing over 14 issues. That being said, number 15 right here is an explainer issue. It's literally Gordon talking to Batman and walking him through practically every single issue to make sure that Batman gets the full picture. You know, Batman comes up to him and says, "Where's Joker? Did you kill him?" You know, basically. And Jim walks him through all 14 issues. And you are like Batman sitting there trying to understand, like, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, those were the connections. Oh, that's what actually happened there. So this issue is just basically a 14-issue recap of what happened. So it's pretty much essential, unless you're just a genius and you just read all 14 issues and everything was crystal clear and you connected all the dots. But you needed an explainer issue like this one, so at least we got that. Art style-wise, there's some pages that are very much the same as the art we've seen in the previous issues. But, you know, there's nothing really spectacular going on here. Again, it's a giant recap. It kind of fills in the gaps of the end of the story, because in issue 14, we didn't get the complete story of what actually happened to the Joker. In this issue, we get a little bit more of that. And so it does kind of fill in the gaps that issue 14 left. But that's basically it. It's a gigantic recap issue that gives you a little bit more information than we had in issue number 14. If you read all 14 issues, man, you got to get this book too, unfortunately. So, or maybe not unfortunately if you really liked it, but you got to pick it up if you read all 14, I think. Check it out, Joker number 15. Yep, let me know what you thought about that one. And the next DC book we got is Flashpoint Beyond. This is issue number 3 from Jeff Johns, and this is probably one of my favorite books out right now for DC. There's a lot of contenders for that. I really like World's Finest. I like the new Batman run. I like DC vs. Vampires. We'll get into all that stuff later on. But Flashpoint Beyond, I just love this world because it's basically like, it's the same world that we know now in DC proper, but it has like all these really weird twists, such as in the alleyway, Bruce gets killed instead of Martha and Thomas, and so Martha becomes the Joker and Thomas becomes Batman, but he's the Batman that kills, and Martha turning into Joker, that's a really interesting thing. Harvey Dent's in here, but he doesn't become Two-Face, somebody else does. Thomas Wayne owns like a giant casino and the Penguin works for him. Superman's here, but like his origin's not as pure as the original origin. He's actually sent to Earth to kind of take it over and prepare it for the invasion of the other Kryptonians to take it over. It's all these really cool things. There's a giant battle between Atlantis and Themyscira and everything, and it turns bloody. The Flash doesn't exist, but the Reverse Flash is here. It's just a really, really weird universe, and it's fun to play in that universe. So in this issue, we do get Superman in here. I forget exactly what he's called. They call him Subject 1, but he's essentially our Superman character. He's basically been captured by the government when he was an infant and tested on his entire life, but he escaped. And now he's kind of like learning his power and learning what it is his original purpose was supposed to be. And so he's telling Batman basically, hey, in a few days, my whole race is going to come here and take out the world, so I need your help to figure all this out. We get a cool Poison Ivy and Swamp Thing reference in here too. We get to see them, which is really cool. I really like the art style in here too. I think this is something really special. I would love this to be like a continuing thing. This is only 6 issues, but I would love to see this universe on an ongoing basis with Jeff Johns and this artist on here too. I think that would be really cool to see this play out, but it's only 6 issues. They're probably going to do some recap issues and some spinoffs and stuff like that. But Flashpoint Beyond is actually really, really cool. I would really recommend it, especially if you're into Flashpoint. And if you're not, this is still a fun playground to explore a little bit because it's so different. It doesn't really rely too much on Flashpoint. It touches on it in the first issue or the issue 0 that came out. But I think you'll still get a lot out of it if you're not into Flashpoint. And if you are, you got to read it, man. It's really cool. All right, the next DC book is DC vs. Vampires. This is issue number 7 of 12. We have James Tynion, Rosenberg, and Schmidt on the art here. And I got to tell you, I really, really love it's like Flashpoint Beyond in a way. It's the same universe, but they get to play around with it. It's out of continuity, and they get to do whatever they want to with the characters. And in things like this, things like Deceased, they can get pretty gnarly in these things and like take out heroes in really creative ways and let the villains really kind of take over. So I think that's really cool. And they're also doing that in another DC book we're going to cover here in just a minute. But in this issue here, we're basically understanding that a lot of the heroes that are alive are collectively gathering in this one secret location, and they have their ace in the hole on the way. It's somebody that they're trying to protect, someone that they're trying to not get converted into a vampire, essentially, and they get her on board in this issue here, and they develop a plan on what they're going to do to kind of alleviate this darkness, let the sunlight come through, and help take out all these different vampires. Now, a lot of the heroes, obviously, when they get together, they're going to be arguing about the main objective. And so some other people have like these revenge missions they want to go on. They want to go right to Gotham, kill the king in person. But yeah, it's actually a really, really fun book. Again, I like books that play around in sandboxes that we can't play in main continuity. And so books like this are really, really cool. So I would highly recommend this one as well. All right, we got a few more DC books left. We have Batman Killing Time. This is issue number 5 from Tom King and Marquez and Sanchez on the creative art team as well. So this book here, it opens with the same annoying things that the other issues open with, which are these weird time jumps. The difference is in this book, in this issue, the time jumps don't make sense until towards the end of the book. And they're actually kind of interesting. So if you're reading this issue and you're looking and you're 2 or 3 pages in, you're like, you know, at 5:35 a.m. this happens, and then at 5:39 this happens, and then there's this person, and then there's that person, and there's like these minute by minute time jumps. Stick it through it because it's going to make a lot of sense later on. Unlike the previous issues where all these time jumps seem irrelevant and kind of stupid, this one actually makes sense. So stick with it. Now, the time jumps back in like the BC era, those are still stupid, and I can't connect the dots between any of that stuff. But the time jumps in the very beginning of this issue, read through those. So basically we have the Riddler and we have Catwoman. They're going to make the deal. They're going to give away the mysterious item that we actually get to see in this book for the first time. And I still don't understand really the relevance of it. But at least it's revealed in this issue. They're making this deal with a government agent that we were introduced to before. And we have like this gigantic like war zone kind of a scene towards the end of the book with all these different gangs kind of teaming up and going crazy. And of course we have Batman and we have the Help intervene as well. So it was really cool to see how that all unfolded. So this issue is a little bit better than the previous issues, I think. I still don't know if the item that they've been focusing on for the last 5 issues is like even real, first off, or what it is. I won't tell you what it is because maybe we'll understand like the power or quote unquote power behind it in the next issue. But yeah, this issue is actually pretty fun. So if you've been hanging on by a thread with Batman Killing Time, I think this issue is, it will heighten your interest a little bit more. It was more interesting. Stick it out for the first few pages, especially the time jump stuff. And yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking about this one overall. We only have one more issue left. Are they going to nail the landing? Is it going to fall flat? Let me know. All right, the next DC book is Dark Crisis. This is issue number 2 of 7. We have Joshua Williamson on this one. We have Sempri, I don't know, and Sanchez on the creative art team. And this issue is actually really, really fun. I did not really like the lead-in issues. I didn't like issue number 1. I thought it was pretty dumb as far as a crisis event goes. I don't care about anything to do with the crisis stuff that's happening. I like what I see in this book because this book is actually focused on the fact that the Justice League are gone. They're dead, supposedly, right? We learned that a couple issues ago on Justice League 75 even, right? And so in this book, all the villains are teaming up and they're making sure that the Justice League legacy will never live on. We're not giving the heroes enough time to coordinate efforts, to make new teams, all that stuff, assert their dominance back on the supervillain world. So they're attacking, and they are attacking Teen Titan Tower, Academy, whatever it is, right here. And it's very, very effective. And so it is kind of fun. It's almost like a Deceased or DC versus Vampire thing where like there's a lot of carnage in this book, and there's some people that are just dead and or presumably dead. And so we do have Dick Grayson. We do have Nightwing stepping up. He's kind of like the Captain America at the end of Endgame, just strapping that shield on, facing that army. He's got impossible odds right now, and there's a really awesome moment where he's about to just take one for the team, and someone steps in and gives him some assistance. And it's like, it's writing like that, and it's art style like that that kind of gives me the shivers, gives me those, yeah, that's what I'm talking about kind of moments. And I just wish that they were able to find that kind of feel and put it into the other books as well. Because this is a book, when I got done reading it, I was like, okay, I see this is actually pretty cool. I like what's going on. But then they do pepper in some more of the crisis stuff in here as well. And then I'm just like, oh, it's a crisis event. I forgot. But I do like everything that's kind of happening in between all that. So I think that's really cool. I like the way they portrayed all the characters. It felt really interesting. There's some Green Lantern hype in here as well. So if you're a big Green Lantern fan, I think you're going to love the ending of this book. So Dark Crisis, this was actually a sleeper hit. I almost didn't even read it this week. This was like my second to last book. And I'm like, well, I might as well read it. I got some extra time. I'm going to do my reviews and stuff. I want to stay up to date on it. So I read it and I'm like, okay, I actually like what's happening in this issue. So Dark Crisis number 2. Let me know if you read it, if you had the same kind of hype I felt in this one. Let me know down below. All right, and the last DC book. Oh my gosh, the last one. We just covered pretty much everything. We have Batman 125. I kind of saved, not the best for last, but something that was very, very interesting and very cool. I got that cover A, and then I also got the variant cover with, I don't know, is this Failsafe, I think his name is, on the character. It's like a little character spotlight issue. And so we got one with Failsafe on there. Pretty interesting character. We'll get to that towards the end there. But this is the new era begins. This is the new era begins. We have Chip Zdarsky, we have Jorge Armendez, and we have Mori on the coloring. Can I just say I forgot how much I missed this artist team, this artistic team on here. It's just great. It's great. So basically, the plot here is, of course, we have Batman kind of waking up. He has this like nightmare. Everyone's taken out. He's kind of refocusing. He's trying to get a handle on what's going on. He's still broke. He's still trying to like learn to utilize all his different resources. It's fun to see his new Batcave in here. It's not really a Batcave. It's like some shelves with a couple of computer screens and like empty cans of energy drinks laying around. So there is that. But basically, Penguin, who was injured severely in Batman Killing Time, he's still in the hospital right now, but he's devised this plan. He's made this really interesting plan to take out super wealthy people in Gotham. And so he kind of uses these low-level thugs to begin with, and then he has this gigantic elaborate plan to take over a gala, and that's when Batman intervenes. And it's also in that moment we have a little bit of continuity issues because the Penguin is in the hospital, practically in ICU, almost on his deathbed, and Batman should know that, but he gets kind of tricked in a really classic way. I think we've seen the way that he gets tricked like this very, very recently. And there's also some tragedy in this book, but at the end of the day, Batman does save the day, but at what cost? And so I will say that this book's got some amazing art in here. I really love that. The feel, it's just super dark. I think it has to do with the art style. It has to do with the story in general. It's a very visceral story. It's a very dark story. And Jorge Armendez just knows how to draw that kind of stuff. I'm absolutely in love with that. It reminds me of Tynan's run from a visual perspective, obviously. And I didn't mind that at all. So that is pretty cool. And then we get introduced to this Failsafe character at the end of the book. And his name is Failsafe. We don't quite exactly know what's going on there, but it's like a robotic, auto-deployed kind of a character from the original Batcave. Don't know if it's going to be a friend or a foe, so that's going to be interesting to see what's going on there. There is some really, really cool perspectives that are drawn in this book as well. I'll give you an example of one of those here in a second. We have Batman like lunging at a thug in a hallway, and oh my gosh, that is just so awesome. And if you read this book, there's just some really cool visualizations and compositions in here. So as a first issue, I'm way more excited for this one than I was with the previous run that we came out of after we got out of Tynan's run. And so I can't wait to see where it goes from here. And the covers are awesome too on the other issues coming up soon. So Batman, the new era begins, man. I'm all for it. It's already on my poll, so check it out. All right, we're finally out of the big two. That was several books. We have a ton more to go. We're going to dip into some indies, though. Next, we're going to go into Robert Kirkman's Firepower. This is issue number, what are we on now? 22. 22 issues of Firepower, and Samney's on the art on here, Chris Samney. And I will say that Firepower is getting better and better after the break. I know I criticized the first few issues off of the break. I think that we ended the break back in like February, March. I criticized some of the issues. It's definitely picked up the pace since then. And I think in this one, man, Chris Samney just went all out. The colors in here, the writing, the compositions. I don't think I've ever seen an issue of Firepower as cool as this one. It was very, very creative. A lot of cool fight scenes and things like that. So it's definitely kicked it up a notch in the action department in this issue. And this is basically, we're rallying the troops. We have this dragon that was unleashed. We have this guy controlling him. We have the serpent masters or whatever they're called. And now we have Owen teaming up with all the old masters, and they're going to go take the fight right to him. And so I think it's going to get absolutely nuts in the next few issues. Firepower, one of the best indie books out there right now. I'd recommend it. We're 22 issues in. It's a fast read, and I think there was a trade paperback leading into issue number 1, and it came out a few years ago. Definitely worth it to pick that one up too. So if you're not into Firepower now, you can catch up pretty quick. It's definitely worth it. Check it out. All right, and the next image book we have is The Closet. We have issue number 2 from James Tynion. We have Fullerton and O'Halloran on the creative art team as well. And so this book is very, very interesting. It's a Substack book that we actually made to print. And I will say Tynion's doing a way better job than most with the whole Substack to print kind of a thing, and with rewards and everything. That's a whole nother conversation though. But if you're wondering how Substack was going, Tynion's is amazing, and I do not regret that one at all. The other ones, not too good. But anyways, so what are we doing in Closet number 2? This is an interesting book because it's layered with just like raw human emotion and thoughts, and like it's all of these like dark thoughts that you might have. He's throwing all that on paper, and I hear that it's actually based on true stories from him personally. So if you can relate to anything he's going through in here, I feel bad for you in a way, because there's some anger and some resentment and some uneasy feelings that are laid out in this book. And he does that from time to time in his books, which I think are pretty cool. But this one feels like it hits pretty close to home to him. We basically have this family, this little boy. He's seeing monsters in his closet. His parents are not great. His dad's kind of like this like alcoholic trying to run away from his responsibilities. He's resentful towards his wife. He doesn't really like how things are going. He thinks a move to another part of the country will kind of, I don't know, level out the playing field a little bit and bring happiness to the family. Wife's getting a new job. Maybe she'll be better. Maybe she'll feel better. Kids seeing monsters in the closet. What does that mean? But basically in this issue, we have our dad. He kind of met up with an old friend, and they're kind of sitting around the campfire, drinking some beer and getting real. You know what I mean? The friend hasn't seen him in a long time. He's witnessing everything that's happening, and he's kind of laying into him. He's like, dude, I'm your friend. I'm going to tell you what you're doing wrong right now, and you just got to shut up and listen to me. And it's that kind of a thing. So it gets real pretty quick, and it's a really, really interesting book. And again, if you can relate to anything that's happening in this book, I think that's the beauty of comics in a way, if you can, but also you might have some stuff you need to work through yourself too. So I would recommend this book a lot. I think it's only 3 issues, and we're on issue number 2. I think he's probably going to write some more. I haven't seen it on Substack, or I can't remember it quite yet, or I can't remember it right now. But yeah, I would check out Closet issue number 2 for sure. It's a pretty cool read, and it's pretty deep, so check it out. All right, the next image book we have is Little Monsters issue number 5 from Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. And this is a book which is very interesting. It had an interesting premise to start with, and then it took a few issues for it to actually get any traction with me personally. It's probably around issue 3 or 4 where I was like, oh, okay, this is actually going to be a pretty cool book. When they started introducing the origins of all these different kids, I started paying more attention to that, and then they started broadening their world a little bit. These kids are revealed to be like 300 years old, something like that. They are vampires. Don't want to spoil it too much, but it is called Little Monsters, and they have fangs in every cover, so that's not a spoiler. But essentially, they learned to kind of follow all these rules to stay alive all this time. And so they're learning little by little that maybe they don't need to follow all the rules that they were given, and they start seeing how the world's bigger than they thought it was, and they start interacting with other people in the world. To their benefit, and then maybe not so, right? So it is pretty cool. There's a lot of tragedy in here. There's an awesome hook at the end. Again, visually, the art style is pretty cool. It's like this gray tones, gray and white tones, but when it needs to accentuate or it needs to highlight the gory aspect, like the blood and everything, there's like this really awesome sharp red that they use. And so it is pretty cool to make things pop off the page. But yeah, this was an interesting run. Again, it took a few issues to kind of get traction with me, but I really like what they're doing in issue number 5. Can't wait to read more. Little Monsters, let me know what you thought. All right, we got a few more image books to go. We're going to dip into Metal Society issue number 3. We have Zach Kaplan on this one, and I got the variant cover, which I think is really cool. The first issue was one of my picks of the month a few months ago, and number 2 was right up there as well. So how did number 3 stack up? Well, I will say that everything I liked about the first 2 issues, it carries over issue to issue. And so basically we were introduced to this world where robots took over. They got bored or something like that, and they actually decided to create life again. Humans were extinct for quite some time. They started creating life, and they gave them like the lower level jobs, like cleanup crews and things like that. Well, over time, they kind of get more and more and more people on the Earth, and so basically there's like this one champion for Earth that's going to go into this boxing match against the champion for the robots, and it's like this gigantic pride battle. What's actually really interesting is they spend some time with each of the characters to really develop them, to go over their motivations, their desires, like why they're getting into this situation to begin with. And so you think that you would actually be siding with the human because of how, relatable it might be. But the robot in here actually has some pretty cool motivations as well, and you really feel for both of these people. You don't really know who you want to win because you kind of have a lot at stake, which is both sides. I think visually they do a really great job of making the robots all very different. Like they were designed for a certain purpose, so they're built differently. So there's a lot of uniqueness in the robots themselves. And again, it's like a futuristic, somewhat dystopian, maybe from a human perspective, but it's actually an advanced culture because the robots designed it. And so I think aesthetically, the buildings and everything and the surroundings look really, really interesting and just fun. So I do like that too. But every issue we're getting a little bit closer and closer to that final battle that we were teased in issue number 1. They did a great job of setting that up in issue number 1, and then they kind of jump back in time to show you the build up to that moment. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing where this book goes. It's one of my favorite books right now out. Metal Society issue number 3. It's a must read on the indie scene for sure. The next Image book we read was Saga. This is issue number 60 from Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. And I gotta say, Fiona Staples does a great job and has really matured her processes through this whole run, and it's really, really showing in this issue as well. So from a story perspective, Brian K. Vaughan does a really great job of using the characters we all fell in love with and really kind of adding some more depth and detail to those relationships. And basically, there's not a whole lot that goes on in this issue, but I think the foundation that he set so far just really makes you happy to see the characters and see them interacting again. So I think that's really cool. So basically we have the kids kind of having a day off in a way, going to like a Chuck E. Cheese or like a Dave & Buster's or whatever you have around in there. And so there's a little bit of that action. They're going to the arcades, they're getting tickets, they're playing games and things like that. And so it's just fun to see them having like a good time because there's so much trauma and horror in their past. But as most Saga books go, there is a little bit of darkness that's peppered in here and there. There's some pretty tragic stuff that happens at the end of the issue. Some familiar characters, some interesting characters we haven't seen in a while, introduced in the first half of this book as well. So it's nice to touch base with them overall. But again, Saga's just an amazing read. It's one of the best comic books ever written. I'm so glad it's still an ongoing thing right now. It does hit you in the feels a little bit towards the end here. And from what I understand, we're going to take a little bit of a break for the next few months. And then we're going to be catching up with issue number 61 sometime in the fall. So I would recommend picking up the trades, getting caught up during this little break. You'll be prepped ready to go when 61 comes out. And it's just a super fast read. It's really, really fun. Saga, one of the books out there. You got to get it. Then the last Image book that we got this week was Twig. This is what issue is this? This is actually issue number 3. This is from Scotty Young and Kyle Strahm. And so basically, this book is basically just like an RPG written as a comic book at this point. We basically have our main character. He's on this mission right now. He's trying to fill the shoes of his father, who is like this great man, and he's trying to basically save the world right here, and he has to perform these certain tasks on time in order to do that. And so he's learning the ropes. He's new to it. This is his first time doing this whole thing, but he's hit with all these different distractions and delays and hiccups and things like that. So basically, he's trying to do whatever he can do to get back on track and save the day, essentially. What's really interesting in this is the art style that they use in here, too. It's almost as if they took like the Rick and Morty insane multiverse concept, when they go to certain planets and everything's just nuts. And they introduce that in here, and every other panel is just like another version of that in like a cute, Scotty Young kind of a way. And so that is pretty fun. So half the fun of this book is just looking at the different panels and just staring at them and looking at the different worlds that he created. It is really, really fun. Obviously, there's a gigantic, like, cute element thrown on here, too, and it's a call to adventure story, so it's easily relatable and something that'll resonate with everybody. And so it's just a really well-done book. It's a little bit formulaic, but I think it still works. It's very, very creative. It's cute. It's dark when it needs to be. It's just a fun book overall. So we're 3 issues in right now. I think this is only a few more issues long, if I'm not mistaken. There'll probably be some spin-offs, like a Kanto kind of a thing, but unlike Kanto, I'm looking forward to the next volume of this one. Twig, let me know what you thought about it. All right, well, that was it with Image. We're going to go into Dark Horse Comics next. We have The Ward, issue number 2, and this is actually by Cavan Scott and Andreas Ponce, I believe. Now, The Ward, it's an interesting book. It's basically like this hidden ER hospital system that treats demons, ghosts, goblins, things like that. And again, it's hidden kind of in plain sight. It's like a magically hidden kind of a thing, right? And so it is on Earth, and so it's pretty fun to see how they blend those two things together. All these monsters are hiding in plain sight as normal people, but when they get sick, when they get injured or anything like that, they travel to this ER. There's a whole paramedic system set up. It is really, really fun. If you're into the healthcare scene, this is a fun book to kind of get into and just have fun with. But they do explore these two giants. They're kind of like sewer giants, and she's giving birth right here too. So it's like the whole issue centered around being able to pull this off in the field, in the real world, without kind of raising any attention to the average person. Now, of course, we have our doctors and our nurses that are in the actual ER taking care of the other patients at the same time. And so it's kind of fun to see them bounce back and forth and watching them display their own power sets, because these doctors and nurses, they're monsters too, and they have different power sets. And it's really cool to see how they utilize those to help take care of the patient. So it is pretty fun to see that. Again, especially if you're into the healthcare field. If you worked in an ER, I think this is something you're going to really enjoy. If you haven't, you'll still get a lot out of it as well, but it'll hit a little bit less close to home, I think, than if you did. So The Ward, issue number 2, this is a book I pick up just because it's just fun, and I like seeing what's happening in here. And so far, the first 2 issues have been pretty good. So not a bad read. I'd check it out if you got it in your shop. All right, the next book we read is from AWA Upshot. It's Absolution, issue number 0. And you recognize that art from all those AWA books. We got Mike Deodato Jr. on here, and I believe Peter Milligan's writing this one, if I'm not mistaken. So this book is actually pretty interesting. I haven't been able to figure out any of the celebrity lookalikes from the characters in here, and that's something I always try to do with these Mike Deodato Jr. books. But anyway, so the basic premise in here is, imagine if like your favorite Twitch streamer was actually a assassin, and they had these like implants so you can see their point of view, and they're actually going on missions and killing people. And you were inside the chat room, like a red room kind of a situation almost. And you were giving points and value to like the moves they made. And if they got enough of those points, they would level up into Absolution. And that is the main goal. If you don't score enough points, it's like a Suicide Squad type thing where these different implanted bombs will just kill you instantly. So it's a pretty interesting premise. We get introduced to our main lead in here. She's like she's like a real famous assassin for the mob, and she gets wrapped up into this whole game right here too. And so we're going on an adventure right now. We're witnessing her going on one of her hunts, and she has a little time to rack up points to get to Absolution before she's taken out. I will say that it's actually pretty fun to see her going through this mission, because you get her point of view, you get her dialogue, her inner monologue, and things like that. Mixed in with like the chat room responses to her kills and things like that. So it is pretty fun to see those two things layer on each other. Of course, it's got that Mike Deodato art style, the crazy paneling and everything like that, the ultra gore. I think Woody Harrelson's in this book based on his art style. And I really haven't been able to place too many other people. I wonder if I can do that. Oh, there's got to be some people in here that he's emulating. I just haven't been able to put a name to it. So if you're into the AWA books and you like Mike Deodato Jr., you like Peter Milligan, I'd pick up this book. It was really fun. Can't wait for issue number 2. And then the last book that we read this week is from Ablaze Comics. We have Promothy. I'm not French. I can't say that word. 1313. It's right across there. Got this jock cover. It's pretty interesting. I got it because it was a cover buy, and I knew it was kind of like about aliens and things like that, or supernatural stuff. So I went ahead and picked it up. I don't know the creative team on here at all, except for Dave Stewart on the colors. We have Andy Dingle and we have Sean Martinborough. So I'm not recalling anything immediately that I've read from those folks or seen. But Dave Stewart's on the coloring, and so I really like Dave Stewart. So we're going to get into this one. So what is this one about? Basically, we have this woman that has grown up with this belief that she was abducted when she was a kid, and she kind of was writing books about it, and there were stories, and there was movies, and there was TV shows or something like that devoted to this woman's experience. And as she grew up, she kind of realized that maybe she was hallucinating. Maybe she had like a psychotic break and imagined all that stuff growing up. And she was kind of suppressing that with some psychotic meds and things like that. And she's going on tours talking about her experiences. But we learn in here that maybe that was not exactly the case. Maybe she really did have an experience. And we realize there's a whole cult, there's a whole organization out there who needs her help to help prevent this oncoming alien invasion. So it is a pretty cool premise, interesting idea. I think the execution was done fairly well. I didn't quite enjoy the art style that much. It was a little bit too, I don't know if amateurish is the right word. It was a little bit too simple. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity on the art style, but the story was at least interesting. So it has that going for it. It was fun and playful in this weird way. So I did appreciate that. If you guys read this one, let me know what you thought about it. First from an art style perspective, and then from like a general theme and a story perspective. And did you agree with my assessment of it? So let me know what you thought about this one if you read it down below. But oh my gosh, guys. So that was a lot of books we read this week. That's what I thought about them. Let me know what your favorite books of the week were. If you had any comments or clarifying thoughts of anything that I said, please put them down below in the comments. But as always, we thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification to be alerted of future videos. See you guys in the comments.